Here with the next session on neurosteroids. The session will be shared by Dr. Vijay Chandra on current understanding on neurosteroids and inflammatory markers in schizophrenia by Dr. K. Raman. We have as chairpersons K.S. Ravikumar sir and Dr. Rahavendra Nayak sir. Okay. Welcome to the dais, sir. Rahavendra Nayak sir will be joining on online. He's online. He's over there.
Hello, thank you. I thank the organizing team for giving me the opportunity to be the chairperson. And I also like to apologize that I'm not able to attend in person due to personal reasons. So I welcome the speakers. Thank you.
Very good evening. In this session, we have two interesting presentations. One is neurosteroids current understanding by Dr. Vijay Chandran Reddy. The second one is inflammatory markers in schizophrenia by Dr. K. Raman. The first one, I call upon Dr. Vijay Chandran Reddy. He is additional professor of psychiatry, All India Institute of Medical Sciences, Mangalagiri, Vijayawada, Andhra Pradesh. Over to Dr. Vijay Chandran Reddy.
Good afternoon, sir. Today I'll be presenting on neurosteroids. The thing is, when I was studying my undergraduate entire brain, wherever you go into any Purkinje cell, the main thing is acetylcholine, and it is modulated by GABA and other modulators to control the activity of the brain. So it's something like you are driving a bicycle, you are driving a motorbike at a very high speed and controlling it with a brake. So the brake is equally important as other components. So in this context, I want to tell you that GABA is the very important neuron that you are able to sit in this room without jumping. So if there are no GABA neurons in your body, all might have been under the activation of acetylcholine and have not been able to sit stably in the room. So why the context of neurosteroids came into. So the neurosteroids concept has been coined by Etienne Bluro. So what are neurosteroids? So the neurosteroids are those steroids that are present in the brain or synthesized by adrenal gland. So to understand that concept, the two terms were coined. One is neurosteroids and neuroactive steroids. Neuroactive steroids are those steroids that come from the peripheral glands and cross the blood-brain barrier and act on their GABAergic receptors and show their function. Whereas neurosteroids are locally synthesized and they act on their own places. So then the concept, how to identify neurosteroids. The entire system to build up neurosteroids like P450 side cleavage chain, which is very important, and STAR-D protein, which moves in the cholesterol into the mitochondrial membrane, is present in most of the neuronal cells. Apart from few places in the brain, every part in the brain can synthesize neurosteroids. And the concentration of the neurosteroids in certain places of the brain, like basal ganglia, basal ganglia is very high. And whenever they tested with anti-serum of allopregnanolone and THDOC, they showed high concentration in the cell bodies. And neurosteroids themselves in an autocrine fashion, whenever there is a required in the brain, they are synthesized more, and when the requirement is less, the synthesis falls down. So steroid acute regulatory protein P450 side cleavage chain proteins are very important. They co-localize, and they are highly present in the hippocampus, hypothalamus, and cerebellum. So astrocytes, spinal cord neurons, and dorsal root ganglia also have, and immature oligodendrocytes also have the STAR protein and P450 side cleavage chain protein. So this image is very important. So this is the mitochondrial thing of the cell, and this cholesterol is transported by starch protein, and when it goes inside, this protein is cleaved off. That 18 kilodalton point part is removed, and it is converted into pregnenolone. And pregnenolone is the first rate limiting step. And after that, 17 hydroxylase and 3 beta hydroxylase. So if it stops here, the down part is not very important. So what is more important is 5-alpha reductase. Any steroid that is transformed using 5-alpha reductase will result in a neuroactive steroid. So 5-alpha reductase is a very important part of this whole chain. So when 5-alpha reductase, so for example, if mice, most of our information we get is from mice. So when mice that are knocked out from star proteins do not have the neurosteroid effects. So these are all the neurosteroids: estradiol, pregnenolone, DHEA, allopregnanolone. So what they do?
The next topic is inflammatory markers in schizophrenia by Dr. Raman. Dr. Raman is Professor of Psychiatry, Savidha Medical College, Chennai. He has 14 years of teaching experience and he has been resource faculty for psychiatry in postgraduate entrance coaching centers for the past 10 years. He has got a Young Psychiatrist Travel Award recipient in World Congress of Asian Psychiatry and holds awards for his excellence. He has published more than 20 research papers in national and international journals and addressed more 30 CME programs. He is very active in child and adolescent mental health, anxiety spectrum disorders, school mental health, parenting, postgraduate training, and research. Over to Dr. Raman.
Good afternoon, everyone. Respected chairpersons and people of the stage. The outset, I would really like to thank the organizing committee of IPSOCON for giving me this opportunity. So the topic for discussion today is like inflammatory markers in schizophrenia. So both the topics are of more of a theoretical point of view, although a lot of research has been done from the clinical perspective, but still a lot more is underway. So I'll just take you through the topic. We'll just give a brief introduction about the inflammatory hypothesis in schizophrenia, and I'll touch upon the most of the inflammatory markers that has been studied as far as in schizophrenia is concerned, and are there any therapeutic agents that are available, like anti-inflammatory strategies which are currently available in schizophrenia. So to give you an overview, we all know that like there are multiple etiological theories like which has been talked about with response to schizophrenia. So starting from genetic theory, like neurodevelopmental, neurodegenerative theory, we have the neurotransmitter theories involving dopamine hypothesis, glutamate hypothesis, serotonin hypothesis. So all these has been tested very well as far as neurotransmitter hypothesis. We know that like, it's been proven very well as far as the etiological theory is concerned. So now there are newer theories coming up. Of course, they are not newer theories, but they are all established existing theories. But like now we are re-looking at it in terms of actually finding new therapeutic targets for schizophrenia. So one of them is like vascular theories, which talks about like disruption in the microvasculature in the blood vessels in the brain. And the latest one that I'm going to talk about is the inflammatory theory of schizophrenia. So just I'll give you a brief overview about the inflammatory hypothesis in schizophrenia. So where does the evidence come for inflammatory hypothesis? It dates back to the history where like we were talking about even in post-graduation, we had always talked about in the etiological theories, one of the important risk factors was like influenza virus infection. So there was strong association with the development of schizophrenia was the initial history and the risk factor association. So there was an association between influenza and psychosis, like even with that dates back to Spanish flu. So the second one is like we all know that there are a lot of autoimmune conditions which can present with psychosis. Some of the autoimmune diseases that can present with psychosis include SLE, systemic lupus erythematosus, Hashimoto's encephalopathy, sarcoidosis, And we all know that like this is a very important topic that's been presented as case reports in MELT and case series. It is a well-established concept that there are autoantibodies against NMDA receptors. So this NMDA receptor encephalitis also presents with neuropsychiatric manifestations where psychosis is one of the predominant feature. So considering all these things, like we definitely know that there is a connection between immunological system as well as with regard to the psychotic illness per se. So there are reports which states that like individuals, if they have autoimmune condition, there is a likely chance of 29 to 45% risk of developing schizophrenia or psychotic illnesses. And when there is an infection exposure, so even it might be like exposure during the pregnancy. So the first trimester of pregnancy, if there is a maternal exposure to any infections per se, they can develop they can lead to a risk of developing schizophrenia in childhood. And the infection exposure per se, either during the maternal pregnancy or even during the infancy or during childhood, has been associated with the development of schizophrenic risk up to 60%. And when both autoimmune condition and infection combines, there is a high risk of exposure of developing schizophrenia. So now, like the one more evidence that has been added on to this inflammatory model for development of psychosis or schizophrenia is we all know that's COVID-19. So most of the important clinical presentation that we have seen in neuropsychiatric manifestations of COVID-19 is delirium is one of the commonest that we would have come across in the clinical practice. The second important picture is like the psychotic presentation. Of course, like mood pictures are there, but predominantly psychotic pictures with confusion was the predominant picture in COVID-19 psychosis. So we all know there might be multiple causes due to COVID psychosis, but most importantly has been talked about is one is steroids that are used for COVID-19 infection could be actually leading to psychotic presentations or the psychological stress. Or most importantly, it is that they actually trigger the inflammatory cascade. So the inflammatory cascade is one of the hypotheses that's the etiological factor for psychotic presentations in COVID-19 as well. These are all the evidence to say that like there is a correlation between inflammation and psychosis. So coming to schizophrenia, so where do we get this evidence from? So there is definitely evidence is available in the literature to establish the inflammatory theory for schizophrenia. One is patients with schizophrenia have been found to have increased both in the blood as well as in the CNS pro-inflammatory markers. So I'll be highlighting on what are the pro-inflammatory markers or the interleukins or cytokines. So there are definite expression of genes which are coding for the immune system, particularly complement C4. So this complement C4 gene coding has been associated with an increased risk of schizophrenia. So expression of genes for this has been found to be increasing the risk for schizophrenia. Infections in early life has been associated with increased risk of schizophrenia. So like any infections, as I told you, like Toxoplasma gondii, rubella, influenza, all these infection exposure in an early life has been associated with the risk of development of schizophrenia. These are all possible hypotheses to say that like there is definitely an infection immunological etiological factor for schizophrenia. We all know that like schizophrenics, there is high comorbidity with like metabolic diseases. And in addition to that, like most chronic schizophrenics also develop infection, and infection is considered as one of the mortality factor for schizophrenia. So which says that like whether they are already prone for developing infection is one hypothesis that's been put forward. And the other way to find out whether inflammatory hypothesis exists or not is there are immense amount of clinical trials which have found that treatment effects of anti-inflammatory medications on schizophrenia. So these are all the plausible hypotheses. So now expanding the stress diathesis model, which we talk about vulnerability stress hypothesis to vulnerability stress inflammatory hypothesis, because stress as such can increase the pro-inflammatory cytokines, or we call it as with interleukins, which actually increase the inflammation process or promote the inflammation process. I'll be talking about those interleukins very soon. And the changes in the neurotransmitter system that are observed in schizophrenia are the same which has been replicated in the inflammation of the brain. So these are almost similar. That is what was observed. So probably there is a definite connection between the vulnerability, stress, and inflammatory model. Of course, other than that, like there are certain risk factors for schizophrenia, which could actually code for genes related to the immune system, which can actually accelerate the development of schizophrenic illness. And this is a dual process. So as I told you, anti-inflammatory agents have been found to be actually effective in reducing psychosis. Similarly, antipsychotics such as risperidone, quetiapine have had anti-inflammatory effects or immunomodulatory effects as well, which has been proven. So coming to the genes and the inflammation, this is the primary evidence that has come. So first thing is like there are a lot of gene polymorphisms involving various interleukins. One is interleukin 1 beta, interleukin 6, and soluble interleukin 6 receptor and IL-10. These are all the interleukin genes for which polymorphisms have been associated with schizophrenic risk. And genotype for the acute phase reactant, the C-reactive protein, has been found to be, it's a mixed results. Some studies say that like the polymorphism of C-reactive protein has been associated in increased risk. Some say there is a decreased risk of schizophrenia. Genome-wide association study was the first, it's a broad genetic study like which has been found to confer increased schizophrenic risk as a result of complement C4 polymorphism. And most importantly, there is increased expression of pro-inflammatory genes in schizophrenia, whereas there is a decrease in the expression of anti-inflammatory genes. So it says that like schizophrenia is a pro-inflammatory state. So these are all some of the changes that we will be looking at in schizophrenia in terms of the inflammatory markers. Like one thing is elevated levels of C-reactive protein, which is an acute phase reactant. So we all must be knowing or familiarizing us during of late, like because of the COVID-19, we would have been monitoring C-reactive protein, ferritin, and other parameters. So one of the important inflammatory marker as far as schizophrenia is concerned is C-reactive protein. The second one is we'll be talking about some of the pro-inflammatory cytokines which are contribute to some inflammatory changes. Autoantibodies, antibodies against like NMDA receptor, autoantibodies against cardiolipin. These are all some of the inflammatory markers that has been identified. And even peripheral blood leukocytes changes, peripheral blood leukocyte changes have also been documented in schizophrenia. So in addition to this, there are well-documented evidence for changes, increased maternal levels of interleukin 8 in second and third trimester to be correlated with greater ventricular CSF volume in adult schizophrenia spectrum cases and reduced volume in left entorhinal cortex and right posterior cingulate. So these are all additional evidence to suggest that about the contribution of inflammation. So this flow chart summarizes the underlying association between inflammation and schizophrenia. If you just look at that, like there are genetic factors and epigenetic factors. I was telling you about the polymorphism for complement C4, along with infectious factors or trauma or injury. This can trigger a peripheral inflammation in the blood, like which can cause cellular activation, and it can cause a cytokine storm, which is the acute phase immune response. And they cross the blood-brain barrier, and this will trigger a neuroinflammation, or we call it a central inflammation. So the central inflammation, once the inflammation is triggered in the central nervous system, this will activate the microglia. So this microglia activation is one of the most important step in the inflammatory process as far as CNS inflammation is concerned. And they will also activate the tryptophan catabolic pathway. So there are two important metabolites of the tryptophan catabolic pathway. One is kynurenic acid, the other one is quinolinic acid. So kynurenic acid is actually an NMDA antagonist. So there is increased kynurenic acid in production in schizophrenia. So we all know that like glutamate antagonism is seen, or hypofunction of NMDA receptor is seen in schizophrenia. So there is more of kynurenic acid in schizophrenia. So which means like there is more of NMDA antagonism activity in schizophrenia. So whereas quinolinic acid is an NMDA agonist. So the more the balance between these two pathways will trigger the excitable toxicity. Of course, like NMDA agonist, quinolinic acid also triggers the excitable toxicity pathway, and it will just enhance the release of the free radicals and result in neurodegeneration. So central inflammation can trigger the microglial activation or the pathway and the increase in cytokines there. So this will have an impact on abnormal neurodevelopment, which will have changes in the white matter disconnectivity or neurogenesis, and also cause changes in the neurotransmitter, dopamine, glutamate, and acetylcholine, which will further lead to the final presentation of the symptom domains of schizophrenia. This is just an inflammatory hypothesis to summarize the in schizophrenia. So microglia is one major area that we need to actually understand as far as inflammation in the CNS is concerned. We call it as neuroinflammation. And as far as neuroinflammation is concerned, microglia activation is extremely important. And there are evidence to say that there is increased or enhanced microglial activity in brains of patients with schizophrenia. We have also been able to identify through the neuroimaging techniques. So once the microglia is activated, so it leads to production of free radicals, nitric oxide, and releases of all the cytokines like interleukin-6, tumor necrosis factor alpha, and which will result in neurodegeneration and white matter disorders. There are two types of microglia. One is M1 and M2 type. M1 is actually more of pro-inflammatory. What we see in schizophrenia is, like as I've been repeatedly saying, it's a pro-inflammatory state. So that is an increase in M1 microglia. But during the initial stage of the illness, that's what it says, like early stage of the illness, M2 is anti-inflammatory. During the initial stage, there is M2 microglia which takes its action and tries to produce an anti-inflammatory response in response to any infection or inflammatory process. But over time, what happens is this M1 or pro-inflammatory state takes over, which leads to neuronal loss, astrogliosis, and cognitive decline. So this has been very well documented as far as microglial activation is one of the hypotheses for neuroinflammatory process in schizophrenia. So now coming to the inflammatory markers which are identified in schizophrenia. So there, as I've been repeatedly saying, they're called as pro-inflammatory cytokines or any cytokines. Cytokines are nothing but they are just proteins, and they are further divided into lymphokines, chemokines, interleukins, tumor necrosis factors, and transforming growth factors, and etc. So they basically promote inflammatory process. So what has been observed is most of the studies have documented in the blood there is an increase in interleukin 6 and interleukin 8. As far as like to just remember, interleukin 6 is the commonly identified interleukin that has been increased in schizophrenic patients. So this is one of the commonly replicated findings, but the rest of them have mixed results. So there is increased levels of interleukin 6, interleukin 8, and tumor necrosis factor, and decreased levels of anti-inflammatory cytokines, which is like IL-2, IL-10, and IL-4 are anti-inflammatory cytokines. There are a lot of meta-analysis studies that have been done, even both in the peripheral blood picture as well as in the CLF, IL-6 and IL-8 have been consistently increased. So there are studies which says that like if there are interleukin 6, increased levels of interleukin 6 in childhood, or even at age of 9 years and 11 years, they have just consistently followed by patients till adulthood. And at 24 years, there has been found to be an increased risk of schizophrenic illness. So there are longitudinal studies of like this identifying baseline interleukins and developing schizophrenic risk at a later age. There are studies which have looked at it. And this is one of the Indian study where they have just taken acute and transient psychosis population, and they have measured interleukin 6, tumor necrosis factor alpha. These two are pro-inflammatory, and they have measured transforming growth factor beta, which is an anti-inflammatory cytokine. And they've also measured cortisol. 41 patients with acute and transient psychotic disorders, they have just measured this. And they have found out that pro-inflammatory cytokine values remained even after improvement in symptoms, which means that they are a trait marker. So that means interleukin 6 will be a trait marker. That means even after remission from the condition, the interleukin level 6 remains elevated. Even after treatment with antipsychotics, the interleukin 6 remains elevated. So that's why they identified that it could be a more of a trait marker rather than a state marker. So this was, I was mentioning about kynurenic acid, which is just a metabolite of the tryptophan pathway. So tryptophan pathway, it's metabolized into like there are two enzymes, tryptophan deoxygenase and indolamine 2,3 deoxygenase. So the tryptophan deoxygenase metabolizes tryptophan into the kynuric acid pathway, whereas indolamine 2,3 deoxygenase metabolizes further into, this is a pathway. You could just see it's not very clear. This is the kynurenic pathway, and this is the indolamine deoxygenase pathway where it just metabolizes into quinolinic acid pathway. As I was telling, the point to be remembered like is NMD antagonism. NMD antagonism is more with kynurenic acid, and NMD agonism is more with quinolinic acid. So this more the kynurenic acid, automatically results in hypoglutaminergic state, which results in schizophrenic illness. So this is one pathway that has been additionally identified or like learned about in the process of inflammatory pathway. So now coming to the C-reactive protein. So in interleukins, among the interleukins, interleukin 6 has been commonly identified and increased or elevated. And as far as C-reactive protein is studied, there has been an increased concentration of C-reactive protein. So more than around 3.8 gram per deciliter. So usually around like less than 3 is considered as normal. And many studies have just looked at even more than 3.8 gram per deciliter C-reactive protein. So higher concentrations have been observed in patients with schizophrenia compared to controls. So they also found out that similar to IL-6, they also found out that the C-reactive protein did not have any changes as patients progress from first episode psychosis to chronic schizophrenia. So that means this is also a trait marker rather than just during the acute phase of the illness, like it was found to be increased. And a lot of studies have been documented as far as like when I just went through the literature, as far as inflammatory markers are concerned, consistent replicated findings are with regard to C-reactive protein, and second one is interleukin 6. So these are the consistent studies which have been identified. So these are all some other studies which says about high C-reactive proteins at age 15 or 16 increases the risk of schizophrenia 4-fold risk. And similarly, elevated C-reactive protein levels at adulthood corresponds to a 6 to 11-fold increase in the late onset schizophrenia. So these are all some of the studies which talked about like correlation with C-reactive proteins and schizophrenic risk. These are all some of the peripheral inflammatory markers. As I was telling, like C-reactive protein is one important reliable marker, but much more reliable is what they talk about is C-reactive albumin ratio, which has been off late, like there are only 1 or 2 studies that I could just find out, which talks about like this ratio has been found to be increased in patients with schizophrenia. These are all other peripheral markers which has also been found to be, but there's just like 1 or 2 studies that have identified that I could just find out. This is neutrophil albumin ratio, neutrophil lymphocyte ratio, platelet lymphocyte ratio. These are all other peripheral inflammatory markers which has been found to be elevated in schizophrenic patient. Lymphocytes as markers in the peripheral lymphocyte system. So we find that like there is an increase in the number of total lymphocytes and CD3 lymphocytes, CD3 and CD4 cells. And what is commonly documented is increase in CD4 bar CD8 ratio. The helper cells versus killer cells ratio is increased in patients with schizophrenia. These are all other studies, like one of the studies that's documented is that has even looked at procalcitonin levels, but these are all just like isolated studies. So that's why I've just quoted, but there are not much of replicated findings or consistent findings with regard to these findings. So this is just to summarize. Pro-inflammatory cytokines are interleukin 6, interleukin 8, tumor necrosis factor alpha. If you just look at most of the studies, they would have documented that. Anti-inflammatory cytokines are interleukin 4 and interleukin 10. Pro-inflammatory cytokines are increased, anti-inflammatory cytokines are decreased in patients with schizophrenia. Among the acute phase proteins, there is an increase in C-reactive protein. The others ones include haptoglobin and alpha-2 microglobin. So these are all other acute phase reactants, but what is commonly documented is C-reactive protein. Among the autoantibodies, increase in anti-cardiolipin IgG and anti-NMDA receptors have been documented. Among the immune cells, as I just now told, CD3 and CD4 are increased and CD4, CD8 ratio is increased. And these are all other miscellaneous biomolecules which has been identified. So last one is among the immunological markers, neuroimaging markers have also been identified, particularly with regard to this. PET studies have been done, like specific tracers have been used to identify what is called as translocator protein. So this is nothing but like, which is commonly expressed in activated microbe. When the microglia gets activated only, it triggers a series of neuroinflammatory processes. As I was just explaining just now, microglial activation is the primary process in neural inflammation in schizophrenia. So probably what happens is, how do we identify this microglial activation is one way is to just find out this translocate protein using a ligand and a specific tracer which has been used in PET study. And this binding affinity has been studied in some patients and it's found that like there is increased binding affinity in patients with schizophrenia. There are other studies like magnetic resonance spectroscopy in neuroimaging, which has looked at like oxidative stress, measured oxidative stress as a measure of one of the etiological measures for schizophrenia. So this is one they have found that like this increased NADH both in newly diagnosed and chronic schizophrenic patients in schizophrenia. This is in comparison with other psychiatric illnesses. We might be wondering that like whether inflammatory hypothesis is just discussed only with regard to schizophrenia, but there are definite, we have established etiological inflammatory processes available for OCD. We all know that infectious etiology for OCD, and second one is like for depression and bipolar disorder also. This is a combination, this is a table which has just compared by inflammatory and immunological abnormalities observed in 2 psychiatric disorders. But I'm not going into the detail. I just wanted to highlight that like whatever I have just summarized has been put in this table. But I just want to highlight this. These are all the trait markers which are identified. These are all the state markers. The state markers are nothing but they will be available to a particular phase of psychosis. Say, for example, if the patient has acute psychosis, this inflammatory marker will be elevated during that particular phase alone. And after it is remitted, or if it is treated, then that inflammatory marker will be reduced, will be decreased. So what it means is like these are all the state markers, IL-6, TGF, beta, and IL-1 beta. Whereas these are all the trait markers. Trait markers are nothing but they may be present throughout. So even in a chronic schizophrenic patient, if the patient we are following up from acute first episode psychosis to chronic schizophrenia, they may be present consistently elevated. So these are all the trait markers which are available as of now. But many studies have been very inconsistently replicating these findings because of the sample sizes that are used, because of the measurement assays that has been used. So now, how do we correlate these inflammatory markers with the psychopathology and phase of illness? With regard to the first episode psychosis, these are all the just same documented finding only. What they have found out is like pro-inflammatory increase. And with regard to acute exacerbation of chronic schizophrenia also, they have just found out the similar findings. And as far as most of the studies are concerned, when we are doing an inflammatory marker assay, which is extremely important to take into factor the confounding variables. There are so many confounding variables which can actually influence your inflammatory response. So starting from age, sex, illness duration, smoking, comorbid medical illnesses, medications that are being used by the patients, all can have an influence on the inflammatory marker response. So that is why it is extremely difficult to get a good research out of inflammatory marker studies. So whereas in chronically ill schizophrenics, again like interleukin-6 is consistently elevated. So this is just like the summary of whatever I have just mentioned. So if you just look at this, the first episode psychosis, there are some conditions called as like we must have heard about prodrome. We must have heard about this prodrome. So probably among this prodrome itself, there are specific subgroup of patients with a clinical high risk group. There is something called as at-risk mental state. There is something called as ultra-risk high group psychosis, ultra-risk psychotic group. So what they have found out is whether we can identify schizophrenia like by means of the inflammatory response at a much earlier age, much earlier stage, so that we can use an anti-inflammatory add-on agent or an adjunctive agent. So that also they have tried, and what they have found out is, again, there is some consistent finding with interleukin-6, and interleukin-6 has been associated with increased treatment resistance. Persistently high baseline level of interleukin-6 has been documented to be associated with treatment resistance, chronic course, cognitive impairment, and it can also predict negative symptoms in patients with clinical risk. So these are all the risk factors, the possible predictions that are associated with high baseline levels of interleukin-6. And among the other high-risk group, there is something called as at-risk mental state patients. And again, here there is a strong association with positive and negative symptoms. Increased IL-6 correlates with increase in positive symptoms and negative symptoms. There is a subgroup that we have looked at, like in the prodrome group. It's called ultra high-risk psychosis patients. Again, in this, they have found out increased IL-6 concentration and decreased IL-17 concentration. What they have found out is there are certain patients who are called as this prodrome to hardcore psychosis, pure psychotic group. So these are all called as converter group. So what they have found out is this presence of interleukin-12 predicted conversion to psychosis in clinical risk, high-risk patients. So if you identify baseline high interleukin 12, this group can actually get converted into a high psychotic patients. So when compared to other first episode or high-risk group studies, treatment-resistant, there are not much of studies. And what they have just found out is CRP elevation after initiation of clozapine. That's not much of inflammatory studies that has been consistently replicated in treatment-resistant group. Coming to the association of inflammatory marker with symptom association, most of them have been associated with positive symptom elevation. But one inflammatory marker that has been consistently identified for negative symptom prediction or negative symptom trajectory prediction is tumor necrosis factor. So this baseline tumor necrosis factor predicted 12-month negative symptoms that even included anhedonia. And TNF predicted negative symptom development independent of baseline depression. They have removed the confounding factor of baseline depression in one study using Calgary Depression Rating Scale. And they found out that just a baseline elevated tumor necrosis, which is also a pro-inflammatory cytokine, and that predicted negative symptom development. But one thing that has not been found consistently is there are no consistent findings with regard to cognitive symptom domains. So this is one of the study from the KT. They just follow the same patients as part of the KT trial. And they have measured inflammatory markers at 3, 6, 9, and 12 months. And what they again found out is, because these are all, unless we have a longitudinal study, we cannot replicate the findings. To just summarize the symptom association, IL-6 and IL-4, they have been associated with chronic course. One is chronic course or longer course duration. More severe positive symptoms with IL-6. As I told you, exacerbation of negative symptoms is TNF and IL-6. And worse cognitive abilities, which are identified with IL-6. Whereas if you have low IL-17, there is more. So it's an inverse relationship between IL-17 and negative symptoms, and inverse relationship between direct relationship between tumor necrosis factor and cognitive abilities. So this is the summary of the symptom association and the inflammatory markers. So coming to the last part, the inflammation as a therapeutic target for schizophrenia. So do we have evidence for anti-inflammatory markers usage in schizophrenia as of now? So as of now, like we just, if you just look at the Mosley guidelines, what we have is recommended in that is only this fatty acids, omega-3 fatty acids. So rest of the studies that I am just going to quote on, like there are trials which are there, but there are pitfalls with many of these trials. So that's why we are not able to come to any conclusion. The most important problem with using anti-inflammatory therapies is because this inflammatory response is not static. So it is going to be a continuous process. So we really need to identify the timing of giving this anti-inflammatory therapy, which is a major challenge as far as treatment is concerned. So what is the appropriate time to initiate the anti-inflammatory therapy is a big challenge till now. And the dosing of the therapy, duration of the therapy has not been studied properly in many longitudinal studies. So this is just a summary of the novel therapeutics available in schizophrenia. So if you just look at based on the hypothesis, this is being given, but the one among that is vulnerability stress model. And in that we have NSAIDs as add-on therapies. So I'll just highlight on few of the drugs which are being tried. So this is again another interesting flow chart. I think it will just help, but it's just too small to understand. But it's basically to say that even from maternal immune activation, you can have targets for therapy. From maternal immune activation to microglia activation, you can have therapy for schizophrenia. So coming to the NSAIDs, like what is available now, it's like there are a lot of studies which has been documented as far as aspirin is concerned, because I'm just going to talk about studies which are only double-blind, the placebo-controlled trials and meta-analysis. So only those have evidence. So aspirin is one thing. They have found out that patients were administered aspirin around 1000 milligram per day as adjunct to antipsychotics for 3 months. What they found out was there was a significant reduction in positive scale and total scores of PANSS. And again, there was no improvement with cognition. So none of these anti-inflammatory drugs have significant effect that has been documented as far as cognitive impairment schizophrenia is concerned, except for one trial with minocycline. But otherwise, there are not much of studies. And the other one was with pregnenolone. which I was talking about the neurosteroids. These are the two things that has been found to have some effect on cognitive impairment in schizophrenia, but not consistent findings. Celecoxib is a selective COX-2 inhibitor. Problem with aspirin or any other NSAIDs is the risk of bleeding, and like when you use chronically, you are going to pose the patient for multiple risks. Okay. So similarly, celecoxib is a selective COX-2 inhibitor. They have been also reported to have improvement in total PANSS score. So if you just look at most of the anti-inflammatory therapies, they have documented some improvement in the positive symptom score. So whereas with regard to negative symptoms as well as cognitive domain, there is not much of effect that has been identified. But we have many antipsychotics which have been very effective for positive. We always lack with controlling this negative symptom domain and the cognitive domain as far as schizophrenia is concerned. So again, adding on interaction with antipsychotics or with all these anti-inflammatory drugs, and anti-inflammatory drugs are not going to be like having just only immune effect. They have non-immune effect also, which can cause multiple side effects and adverse reaction, which is going to compound the problem which already antipsychotics might pose to the patient. So again, there are reports on N-acetylcysteine. N-acetylcysteine supplementation for 6 months ameliorated positive symptoms, and of course it has found some improvement in the neurocognition and positive processing speed, but again that was just a one trial and with limited sample size. Minocycline is a tetracycline antibiotic, and it has neuroprotective, anti-inflammatory property and antioxidant property. It is basically a NMDA enhancer. And meta-analysis of 8 RCT shows that this therapy was superior to placebo. But primarily, total score of PANSS increased along with BPRS, but not much effect on cognition. This is one of the study, benefit of minocycline. So this is one of the largest double-blind placebo-controlled study available till date. This study found out that like there is no change in negative symptom score and not much of effectiveness as far as minocycline is concerned. That is what they concluded based on this study. The biomarker outcomes were all related to neuroimaging, medial prefrontal gray matter volume, and plasma concentration of interleukin-6. What they found was there is no effect on the negative symptom domain. Coming to the statins, of course, like LDL cholesterol reducing drugs, like one of them is like that showed some improvement in the negative symptoms, whereas like statins overall improve the positive symptoms, but like consistent usage could not be identified, and longitudinal long-term trials are not available. Omega-3 fatty acids, of course, there are mixed results. Like some studies talk about like the dosage has to be more. So even they say like around 2 grams per day is ideal for either icosapentaenoic acid or docosahexaenoic acid or oleic acid. So the dosage has to be appropriate. Based on the dosage only, they found better results. So if there is a higher dosage, there is some improvement in the overall PANSS score. Other agents, like just now, I was talking about the pregnenolone, which acts as a neurosteroid, and it also modulates synaptic function. Again, it decreases the PANSS score, but not effect on individual scores on positive and negative symptoms. Of course, we have studies on estrogens, we have studies on raloxifene, but not consistently proven benefit. Now, there is a lot of talk about monoclonal antibody. And they have because like as a trial for inflammatory as an anti-inflammatory therapy, but this is very much on a primitive stage. And the advantage of monoclonal antibody compared to the other anti-inflammatory therapies is this has a specific target on the cytokines, unlike the NSAIDs and other anti-inflammatory therapies, which have off-target functions as well. But this specifically targets the interleukins, or specifically targets the cytokine. So, and among all the anti-inflammatory therapies, this is the most potent. This has the most potent anti-inflammatory property, and it usually mitigates the drug adherence because, like, it is primarily IV use. So, whereas the disadvantages, of course, like there are serious adverse effects that can happen with monoclonal antibodies. Again, very costlier, and we do not know the timing of the therapy. Of course, the history dates back to using recombinant human interferon gamma 1B, And there is a study, 8-week one open label trial on tocilizumab, which is an anti-interleukin 6 receptor monoclonal antibody. So this is the only one that is available now, because like I've been talking about interleukin 6 increase. So this is an anti-interleukin 6 like receptor monoclonal antibody. So if at all some studies have to just happen, more trials on this and targeting on interleukin 1 beta and tumor necrosis factor alpha. So that should be the target for anti-inflammatory therapy. Of course, a lot are under trial. So this is all at the preliminary stage, because they have considered using agents which are used for multiple sclerosis in schizophrenic patients as well. But that's all in a very primitive stage. Of course, there are studies which has looked at mesenchymal stem cell therapy. Of course, like that was started with autism. So, but like now they are just like expanding to look at like whether there is possible improvement that can happen with schizophrenia as well. This is just a summary of this very nice review article by Bang et al. So like, which is just come in 2020. It just gives a summary of all the trials that are available among about all the anti-inflammatory agents that are available till date. So what is the road ahead? So what do we know about the inflammatory hypothesis in schizophrenia? We know that definitely there is an immune system mediated influence in schizophrenia, but it is heterogeneous. It is not a homogeneous like, so it means that like there are the studies have not been consistently finding the similar results. So one thing is that the second one is inflammatory pathway involving microglia activation leads to the further aberrant neurodegeneration, which can result in the symptoms of schizophrenia, which has been established hypothesis. And the consistent finding has been of increase in pro-inflammatory cytokines, which is IL-6, IL-1 beta, and C-reactive protein. And what needs clarity, whether inflammation can define a subgroup of a psychotic patients. So can just like in schizophrenia, can we identify patients where inflammation can be easily identified at baseline? Only those patients can benefit from anti-inflammatory therapies. If you can identify baseline inflammatory process, such patients as adjuvant therapy, if you start much earlier, maybe we can actually ameliorate or decrease the intensity of the positive symptoms. So whether can we identify a subset of psychotic patients where inflammation can be identified. As far as therapy is concerned, as I told you, timing of therapy is a big question. Duration has not been determined yet. Small sample sizes of the studies have not yielded consistent results. Dosages could not be determined because like some studies talk about no fixed dosages have been arrived at. Interaction with antipsychotics has to be considered, and cost factor. So these are all the questions to ask this, but like definitely there is some inflammatory hypothesis, but like we need to really look at whether there are some agents really actually effective enough to help patients ameliorate symptoms with schizophrenia. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Raman, for the excellent presentation. Definitely the inflammatory markers are raised, but we don't know whether it is the cause for schizophrenia or a result of schizophrenia.
So it was a nice comprehensive presentation, Dr. Raman. One thing what I feel is like, especially the research in inflammatory markers, one of the greatest barrier is the cost. Because as we know that like apart from CRP, all the other inflammatory markers is not so easy to get done. Now, although there are researchers, like these are most of them are the funded researchers. So for routine workup, like in a day-to-day outpatient practice or inpatient practice, if you want to get done a single IL-6 baseline, it's very difficult to get done because we have seen in this COVID time how difficult is it to get done IL-6 or the other inflammatory markers. Only in the big hospitals they get done all these investigations. And even some of the anti-inflammatory therapies which you focus, like especially which target the specific IL-6 and other things, they are very costly. Like even in the COVID times, what we have seen is that like those anti-inflammatory IV injections are in, maybe in lakhs or in many thousands of rupees. So is there any role of the routine steroids like the dexamethasone or the methylprednisolone? So the India could come out of this COVID mainly because of the the older steroids which we had. So is there any effect of these in these patients? Is there any?
So not much that has been available, sir. So I think, like as you said, like maybe low cost drugs would actually prove some benefit, because as it is, it's the economic burden with treatment of schizophrenia is going to be high. So I think more additional without proven like therapies like this, like will add more to the cost of the patients. So you rightly said, sir.
Because it's worthwhile trying for a brief period. Unlike like if you give for a longer period, likely they have the side effects, maybe both the metabolic side effects and the other systemic side effects. But to try on a shorter period, like for a few weeks or 1 or 2 months, the older steroids may be beneficial. If you see the theoretically, they should have some beneficial effect. So that is some things which we need to look in the future.
That's more to do with the prodrome they have just looked at, sir, because when prodrome, everything has been tried.
Yeah,
So like I think some benefit, will it benefits, because like using antipsychotics or using anything else under the roof in prodrome is a big question. So they've just looked at like whether any use of like anti-inflammatory agents like for a shorter duration with a lower dose, will it be of any benefit, is what they have looked at, particularly the clinical high risk group patients.
yeah.
So, but maybe establish the psychotic patients, I think it has to be just looked at.
Yeah. So any questions from the audience? So,
Okay, if there are no questions, shall we wind up, sir?
so other thing is many of the patients with schizophrenia or the acute psychosis, around 1/3 of the patients present with a fever, which doesn't have any underlying cause. That is one of the strong support for inflammatory hypothesis for the psychotic illness and the other the schizophrenia. That is one more point which is for the inflammatory markers. So rest, like both the speakers did very well and comprehensively covered. These are not the easy topic to be presented.
Yes.
Most of it is a theoretical one because we don't do in and out practice of these things. So I congratulate both the speakers for their presentation.
Thank you.
Any of them did a good job, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It was a captivating session. I welcome Dr. Arun Kumar to honor the chairperson. Thank you, sir. Now I invite Dr. K.S. Ravishankar to hand over the memento to our speakers, Dr. Vijay Chandra Reddy and Dr. K. Raman.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, sir, Ravishankar sir, and the organizing team. Thank you. Thank you very much.
We are at the end of the day too. Thank you, everyone.
myself.